What's going on, guys? Aarava here, and welcome back to the Pitlane podcast, episode number 42 today, to talk about some aftermath from the Australian Grand Prix and what's been happening in F1 and the F1 news over the past week. You're joined by your usual host, myself, Callum, and Tom, and we have a fourth man today, a guest, Hayden. You may know him. He's an F1 YouTuber, just like us three as well, but a link in the description will be to him, so do go check him out. Up-and-comer, who only really started fully making videos very, very consistently, banging them out like in the last year or so. And Hayden's kind of rocketed to how many now subscribers are you on?
3,600.
Yeah, so he's come out
Definitely
of nowhere.
Definitely not counting.
Come out of nowhere and starting to chase us down. So yeah, go check him out. But yeah, today we're going to talk about basically the news in the past week and a bit of Australia aftermath. What drivers have said about it and such. So Callum, do you want to kick us off with all that good stuff? You're kind of the man organising the news.
We can start off with any team at the moment. I think the best team to start off with is maybe Haas, because they did discuss. I don't know whether any of you guys saw this, but did you remember that Kevin Magnussen retired from the race about 6 laps from the end, and he thought it was a suspension failure. It was actually a puncture for some reason. For some reason, they retired him with a puncture, and apparently Haas are actually properly kicking themselves with. But obviously a double DNF and everything, and comparing that to last year where they got 6th place, that's a huge kick in the balls for Haas. But I'm quite interested to see what Haas do in China, because you have got to think about, obviously this is very much up in the air at the moment of whereabouts Haas kind of live in the midfield. Are we going to see them in the points, or was Australia kind of like a stepping stone into quite a troubled year? Because at the moment it's not been the best start, but where do we think Haas is going to go
promising.
this year?
I mean, when we wrote down our season predictions, there's like a 25% part of me that was like, I quietly think Haas might be the 4th best team, but I decided to go with Toro Rosso in the end. But obviously, last year we saw that they got 6th in Australia, and then obviously they got 5th in Bahrain with Grosjean. Obviously, Bahrain's not the second race this year, which suited their car quite nicely with the aggressive tyre strategy. So it's China, it's a different sort of track. Higher tyre wear with these new, more durable tyres. So I think if they get a well within the points finishing position, then you could say maybe there's a good chance they're looking good for like a regular top 10 scorer.
The thing is, it was very much like a case of two sides of a garage, wasn't it? Like Grosjean having a great qualifying, doing well in the race, running in 6th, and then Kevin Magnussen way down the field. So you don't sort of know where they are, whether they're up there with where Roman Grosjean was and Kevin Magnussen was just lacking, or whether Roman Grosjean just had a bit of luck and a bit of fluke to get up there.
Yeah, the gap was like ridiculous between Grosjean and Magnussen the entire weekend. Where was Magnussen before he retired? Where, like, do we know?
He was
like,
out
do you
of the
remember?
points.
He was out of the
He
points.
was way
Okay,
down because he had the turn
Right.
3 kerfuffle with Ericsson, didn't he? So
Right, so they may have been kicking themselves for that, but the real kick was obviously the Grosjean thing. We actually found out at the time during the race they thought it was an engine failure. We actually found out it wasn't. It was like a cooler failure, and the
water
actual
leak or something.
the quote unquote smoke was actually just steam pouring out the kind of engine cover because of the cooler kind of failing. So that was quite unfortunate. And at the time we were like, okay, maybe is the Ferrari engine quite unreliable? It was just a Haas teething problem, unfortunately for them. I am probably the opposite of Tom. I really unfortunately think that maybe they've really missed their best chance to get big points
you're so
over the entire
pessimistic,
season.
honestly. You're so pessimistic. You started with Mana last year. Just stop being such a pessimistic. I'm
Well,
not tired.
let's
on Arsenal Fan TV.
focus
Be
on
positive.
Mana and think, where are they now? Okay.
They are
Okay,
alright,
they got a
but-
point last year. Okay, that was my
I
prediction, and it
I
came
get
true.
you're a man of the
so-
underdogs. I'm
piss
not.
off.
I am not a man
Listen.
of the underdogs.
Okay, I'll talk seriously now. Thing is, Haas should do well. Fact is, they got a lot of backing from
Yeah,
Ferrari. Not
yeah.
just that, they've quietly got one of the most underrated / best lineups on the grid. They haven't got like a good driver and a pay driver. They've got 2 very good drivers for a midfield team. So obviously, they'll probably bounce off each other. They'll be quite competitive. So if the pace is somewhat genuine in Australia, I think their ability can always drag that car 1 or 2 places higher than what it should be. So
One of the reasons why I brought up Haas first, just to like nip it straight in, is the fact that if you look at where they've been with the whole brake issues and the troubled start they've had to this season, and now the whole Ferrari engine being unreliable, them talks being basically disproved, is it just going to be one of them years where they're just going to have problems after problem after problem because they still haven't fully got on top of them brake issues?
Yeah, that's a big thing. After a whole year, you don't fix a brake issue. That's pretty big, like, to still have the same kind of issue that Grosjean's complaining about.
Well, to be fair, Hamilton had this for quite a while when he first joined Mercedes. So
I think that was to do with the soft sprungness of the Mercedes, though. He was so used to a hard sprung McLaren that he kind of walked into Mercedes and it was just non-stop locking up everywhere. Just because it was so
can
soft.
take time, obviously.
Yeah,
they are still a new team. Like, they're still a year old, so I guess it's something that will come with experience. I guess Ferrari can't tell them everything, put it that way. Which is what
there's
think.
Definitely not. Yeah, there definitely can't be like proper A, B team. The same like Red Bull and Toro Rosso. They have to be different entities. So I think this year again is going to be another learning year. I think this one will kind of be the one where they finally sort of prove in a way, like if they've really got what it takes to really solidify themselves in the midfield. Because last year they did get lucky. This year it may not be luck. It may be pure pace. We'll yet to see. It's quite unfortunate we didn't get to really see what would happen. Because who would have known if Grosjean would have stayed in that position he was in to the end of the race? Who knows? Because according to Perez, the Williams is so far ahead of the rest of the midfield. So, don't know.
Well, you look at the race in Australia and how many drivers were one lap down? Pretty much everyone apart from the Red Bull, Ferraris and Mercedes. It's such a big split. But talk about Haas, again, it's just it's a development race at the end of the day. Last year, they did well at the start of the season, but they just failed over the course of the season, didn't they? To sort of keep on developing the car. So if they can get over that this year, then...
Towards the end of the season, they sort of had a bit of a small resurgence. I remember Grosjean getting a few 10th and 9th place, 8th place finishes towards the end. It was just Gutierrez who never got a single point. But I remember them getting a few odd points towards the end of the season. But I don't know. I think it's hard to speculate after just one race.
Yeah.
But I personally think they impressed me with what they did in Saturday and Sunday up until when the issues occurred.
Yeah.
So I think them and Toro Rosso Williams could have a bit of a tasty little scrap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to move on to maybe another team that's had quite a big gap between drivers, and that was Renault. And not much has came out of Renault post Australia, saying that there's been no excuses from Palmer. There's been nothing from Hulkenberg. There's been nothing from Renault themselves. And we saw with the whole, what was the gap in qualifying? About 3.3 seconds.
Yeah, it was too large.
It was too big between teammates, put it that way. And obviously, I had a little rant because, obviously, of Palmer's number one fan interview. Yeah, of course. Just of his ridiculous response coming out of Australia. But then he also has said in the news this week that he wants Renault to check the car before China. And I still don't get the logic. I still don't see why he's digging himself further and further into this hole, because it feels like he's just making Renault look terrible. But we all know that Renault aren't terrible because where Hulkenberg finished. So it's just making Palmer look. Basically, Palmer's just making himself look worse and worse, even though he's trying to put Renault down. And I can't seem to. Bring up a reason as why he's doing this.
The only reason I could think of checking the car still before China is the fact that, obviously, because it's flyaway races, they have to take basically the same chassis and monocoque structure. So I think he wants them to check the integral structure. Because if you remember back to, 2013, I think it was, or 2014, where at Abu Dhabi, Hamilton, they found out he had a crack in his monocoque structure, and that actually affected the car quite a lot. And so I think maybe he's thinking maybe he did more damage than they think in his crash, but then that is really just then his fault, not Renault's fault. Obviously, it's Renault's fault for maybe not picking it up, but at the end of the day, he was the one who crashed. But I guess that's what he's going for. Maybe he thinks that there was more damage than they saw. I guess trying to play devil advocate. I really just think it's his own fault. But given the benefit of doubt, I mean, yeah.
If he has another stinker in China, then there's nowhere to hide. If he gets smacked by Hulkenberg again, then there you go.
Yeah, so, it's not going to be pretty.
I can't wait till China.
To be honest with you, Magnussen smacked him last season until Hungary when he almost got a point and then bottled it and spun. So, and apparently that was enough to sign a new contract. So,
some people have said that.
We'll see.
Some people have been saying that Palmer should be replaced in season. Like,
No,
is
not
that
that far,
a
but-
bit too? Yeah, because even I'm thinking, sitting here saying, okay, that is a little bit too far. But
Does Sirotkin even have any credentials?
Yes. Would Sirotkin even fit in?
It would all depend on who was coming in, really. Like, the only reason the Kvyat switch happened last year, wasn't it? Because Max Verstappen is such a good hot prospect. So if there was a hot prospect like that for Renault had under their belts, then maybe. But you couldn't really see it at the moment.
Aarava?
I don't know. They just signed recently. They signed like 2 junior karters.
Yeah.
Or something.
I've
Or,
literally
like,
just got
one of them
the
was a
name
karter,
here.
and like one of them was a junior driver. But,
Female karting ace Garcia joined Renault Junior program.
yeah.
Apparently she's 16. I don't know much more about her. I don't think about. She's a karting person, so obviously Marta
Early
Garcia.
days.
Yeah, so
Early days,
I don't
basically.
think she'll be jumping into a car anytime soon. But to be fair, I really do like Hayden's point there. I think they'd only ever do it if there was a hot prospect. Which, in terms, you look at Sauber, Giovinazzi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's
You
no.
could argue that he is a hot prospect.
Obviously, though, there's that conflict of Giovinazzi's like Ferrari camp, so there's a conflict of interest of okay, you're a Ferrari driver basically in a Renault car, which is a little bit tricky to do contract-wise, I guess. But it could be a kind of back when we saw like Ricciardo in HRT, it could be just he has a Ferrari branded helmet, but he's driving in the Renault. But that would be such a clash.
That's sort of like Verline, isn't it, really, in Sauber at the moment? It's kind of a bit of a weird
Mercedes,
one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
He has
weird
Mercedes
clash.
logo.
But then
It's-
who are Sauber really partnered with now?
Yeah. It's a
Yeah,
maybe
it's like Ocon last year with Renault.
moving this really smoothly onto that, then maybe that's like a subtle play to butter Mercedes up. You know, the fact they got a Mercedes driver in there, and we've now seen recently talks with Sauber saying they could. They said they have options. That they have talked. They have Kaltenborn's confirmed. They have talked to Honda, but at the same time they said they're also looking at Mercedes perhaps. So it's an interesting one for Sauber. Obviously, from Honda's standpoint, and McLaren, the whole situation like that, to have, I think we mentioned it, one of you two mentioned it in the last podcast, that it'd be good if they had a second engine just to help development, because then you just have double the amount of testing, basically.
Exactly. They'd be getting twice the amount of progress and like R&D in regard to the engine, so they'd be getting twice as much data.
Yeah.
So that would be a very useful source of information. However, can a cash-strapped team like Sauber, who are quickly fading, who desperately need results, are willing to go on this sort of longer-term project?
The thing is, if they did take Honda, it's basically two sides. They either go for Mercedes and they pay for their engine, and they know they have a great engine, or they go for Honda, and Honda are going to pay them buttloads to use their engine. Because at the moment, the deal with McLaren is they get free Honda engines plus cash on top. And I think a similar deal will be struck with Sauber, in my opinion, I think, if Sauber were to go for that. Because that's the only logical way I could see Sauber wanting to have that deal, if Honda were offering a free engine and cash on top.
Yep, that makes
interesting.
total sense. Yeah, because to be
definitely-
fair, I didn't know that. Otherwise, why else would they consider Honda? It's like,
Especially coming off, like, if you're a team now, and okay, you're one of the lower teams, why would you want to be with Ferrari, bearing in mind for the last 2 years, Ferrari have sold year-old engines to a team. And it's obviously always going to struggle. Toro Rosso struggled towards the end of this year, last year, and Sauber are more than likely going to struggle towards the end of this year. It just proves the research and development, and this,
there must be
especially
something
without
there.
the token system, though.
There must be something there contract-wise, because Haas have this year's Ferrari engines.
I think it's just Haas they have more money to spend, and also I think they have a closer relationship with Ferrari, which is kind of sad in a way because Sauber's been there for so much longer. But I think Haas definitely have a closer connection and like networking ties with Ferrari more than Sauber really these days. So it's unfortunate for Sauber, but I don't think, to be honest, the Honda engine wouldn't be bad for them in terms of getting all that cash. It would mean that hopefully they do just stay in the sport. And then on the flip side, also it could be good for the sport just to have Honda have that double, as we said, research, so they could kind of catch up faster. Because I watched the onboard of Alonso's Q2 lap, and it was like a perfect lap. He drove his arse off, like apexes hit, everything was like wrestling the car through the corners. But in the end, the lap time's not there, just because in a straight line that engine is nowhere. But he did every corner perfectly.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I watched the lap by itself, but then I put it on the side by side next to Raikkonen's lap, who wasn't even on pole. He was fourth, a second off the pace. But honestly, it's not even on the straight lines. Like, through the corners, you can see that they're still not the fastest. It's not like they've got a great cornering.
Basically, they're not what they say they are in terms of if we had Mercedes engine, we'd be third or like winning.
They're not what
It's
Ron Dennis said anyway, which is what he said. So I don't know. The McLaren debate, I think we spoke about it last podcast, but
we talked about it so much. We talked about it so much. So I guess we can sort of move on.
Races. Give it 2 months.
Yeah.
Give it 2 months.
2 months. Yeah. Well, that's the same as Red Bull. Red Bull are sort of saying Canada, isn't it? Again, like last year. For
That's
like
literally
updates.
time is repeating itself, and again, Red Bull are going into a season just going, wait till this time, and don't get me wrong, last year it did pay off because obviously Red Bull did end up getting a
Yeah, they came back.
albeit
But this season to me feels a bit more like their 2015 season so far.
Yeah, just sort of like there or thereabouts, enough to be in the top 3, but not actually enough to challenge properly. And it's really just Ferrari and Mercedes at the moment. So I think
such a shame though.
It is a shame, and you would have thought that with all the like engineering prowess they have, they would have come up with something better. But I think honestly, maybe they were underestimating how much Ferrari and Mercedes would have developed their car. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they're still yet to understand the regulations fully. Maybe they'll come out with an absolute worldly update somewhere along the line. Don't know.
Or maybe the thing is, they're the sort of team that won't surprise me if they just say, you know what, screw it. We didn't really grasp the concept that this is regulation, so we'll just focus on next year's car and we'll just sort of subtly develop this one to keep it competitive somewhat. But they're definitely the third best team on the grid comfortably, and the next team after that is obviously Williams. And moving swiftly on to the next topic, Williams had a good race in Australia for at least one of their drivers who came out of retirement, a brief retirement, and Felipe Massa getting a very good 6th place. However, his teammate, Mr. Lance Stroll, had a bit of a sketchy weekend at most. He definitely felt the heat a little bit of Formula 1, and he came under a bit of criticism from myself included. I think all 3/4 of us here, I'm going to say. And he's obviously decided to fight it back already after one race and claim that us fans are jealous of him, the fact that he's in F1.
Well, we know. I'm actually quite interested to see what Hayden, because I haven't heard Hayden speak about Stroll. What do you think about Stroll? Because we're very opinionated about him, but I'm very interested to hear what your opinions are.
I'm always an optimistic person, so I just want to wait and see what happens. He's just jumped into Formula 1. He's 18 years old. He's new, but you look at what he did in F3. He's won 14 out of the 30-something races. You don't just go and do that on pay driver alone. He has got talent. But I feel like it is such a huge step up, especially with new regulations that being a lot tougher and the cars being harder to handle. Yes, like you said before the actual podcast, he's very twitchy on the steering wheel and stuff like that. But I think that may just come with a bit more experience. So maybe just give it time. If he carries on how he is now in, say, midway start of the season, then you're just like, yeah, okay, maybe he shouldn't be here. But I think at the moment, give it a couple of races.
A lot of jumping to conclusions, but it's Formula 1 at the end of the day, and anything you do gets picked up on straight away. And the fact that he has sat there and said that, well, I think it's ridiculous if an F1 driver go in that, oh yeah, people are jealous. No, we're not jealous because I'm not a Formula 1 driver, and I'm not. Maybe if it was like GP2 drivers criticising his driving, albeit, yeah, fine, jealousy. The media aren't jealous of Formula 1 drivers. The media are there to report on Formula 1 and its drivers and teams. So the way you can sit there and say that we're jealous... No, stop. Please stop. Yeah, and again, Will Buxton saying that he had one of the best starts. And the problem is, the thing that makes me laugh is when people are too on his side. Saying when Will Buxton said, oh, he had an amazing start. No, he didn't. He had loads of wheel spin. He went steaming into turn 1 and he had to replace his tyres.
I think Hayden described it quite nicely. An F1 2016 dive bomb into turn 1.
Yeah, it's... I don't know. I don't get how people can sit there and defend it, but then people be so much on his side. Yeah. I think we just need to give him... Basically, China, he just doesn't need to crash.
Yeah, and he's a somewhat massive Massa.
Walls near him.
Somewhat Max Massa, I think he'd be okay. Like if he's within 3 positions of Massa, I think that would be a good step forward for him at China.
I think the ideal for Stroll would have been to start the season off in the equivalent to a Manor and then go to Williams. But unfortunately, obviously, because circumstances pressing and just a bit of a rush in the winter, he's obviously been fast tracking to Williams' seat. I'm not convinced by him, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, Hayden makes a good point saying. The fact he's gone from F3 to F1 is enough as it is, but the fact that we've got the new regs and now the F1 cars are super competitive and just fast and harder to drive, I think, give it at least until mid-season, I reckon. But he definitely, I don't think he'll be, what's the word? I don't think he'll be pressured to great performances because Williams don't have drivers, like, they don't have like a B team or like a driver program in the pipeline, so he could be there for years, like what Massa and Bottas were.
I mean, yeah, Maldonado was there for
I don't
ages.
think, basically, yeah, that's a good point. I don't think he'll be forced into performing. I think obviously they'll try and say, listen, we need these results, but they won't force him out and say, if you don't get this by the end of the season, you'll be out of the team, because they've got no backup plan, hence why they brought in someone who retired in the winter. So, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess
Quite
moving on now.
interestingly, actually, just to
Yeah, go
very
on.
quickly, just force this in between topics. Did speaking about the new regs, did any of you lot see the G-force comparison?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
whole
yeah.
lap
The
from
lap
this
time.
year to last year.
Yeah, the lap.
And I think it was turn 11. There was pulling 6.5 Gs.
Yeah.
Going through that corner.
Yeah.
Holy fucking shit! Like. Like into turn 1, they were pulling 6 Gs under braking. They never really pulled 6 G.
Yeah. On braking, not through a corner,
Incredible.
on braking. Yeah, it's the G's are mainly gone up through braking, not through cornering, because obviously our park doesn't really have that sort of like Catalonia, like turn 3 or turn 9, which is like a high speed
China
flat
turn
corner.
1. Oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
they're gonna be
I'm looking. I was going to say that. That's one of the corners. Also, turns. I think it's 5 and 6. Like the really long swooping. You know what the first sector split is? The left and then the right that comes after that, and also the banking as well. That'd be pretty tasty.
You're just
I'm
going
not
to
gonna lie.
see Stroll's neck snap off halfway through the corner.
I'm just going to say it now before it happens. But because of these new regulations, tracks like China and Sochi become fan favourites because of the way the cars drive around these high speed corners.
I'm just
Yeah.
realising,
Especially
turn
in China.
3, Russia. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Yeah.
No, but
they're
even-
going to be.
even-
They're going
even-
to die.
They're going to be on
Even
rails.
the 90
through
degree
there.
corners, they're going to be like, the 90 degree corners are going to be so much more faster and just more flowing, like they're going to be more, and also China. So I don't know, I think I'm going to reserve judgment on that, but China could be a tasty one in terms of driving on it. Hopefully the racing is good though, that's what we're looking for mainly.
A few things that did make me laugh though was in the comments when the fighter pilots came out to play and defending, fighter pilots experience 12 Gs negative and all this bollocks. And
Well,
it
you
makes
could
me
say
laugh.
that about
Facebook comments make me laugh so
You
much.
could say that about a bloody like American football player. Like they experience more G's than an F1 driver, but the difference is they experience it for a split millisecond when they get hit by someone else. Whereas an F1 driver has that few seconds, and the same thing with a fighter pilot. That they may have more G's, but there's a difference in context of is it for like a millisecond like a football player, a few seconds like a fighter pilot, or a couple of seconds over an entire corner.
And a fighter pilot.
You can't
wears
compare
jumpsuit.
the three. They're all very, very different.
Plus, the fighter
Facebook
pilot's more on the
comments.
whole body as well, whereas the F1 driver is definitely more on the neck.
Yeah, just
Neck,
concentrate, neck force, and then like a
Yeah.
footballer would be wherever they're hit, that's where they experience more of the force. So you can't really compare G's. But yeah, that's always the case, isn't it? Like with Facebook comments, it's just sort of like, yeah.
And people complained about the fact that they used Hamilton's lap on the G-force thing.
Oh yeah, no, I was
People
gonna.
like,
I was going
Are
to
you
say
dumb?
that actually.
It's the fastest lap. Of course, it's going to be the most G.
I was actually going to say
Oh.
that because on the build-up to this season, they did that whole Hamilton driving around all the circuits, and they kind of merged all the corners together for all the circuits, and it was like a flying lap of the entire season with Hamilton. And people were getting really like arsy in the comments, like, "Why isn't it a Ferrari or something or a different car?" And it was like because he's the fastest. He did the fastest lap times in 2016, and it's like. Now, like you got fans probably asking, like, why isn't it Ferrari for winning the race? But it's like the fastest pole lap was still the Mercedes.
Yeah.
It's just Facebook comments. I tried to stay far away from them. Now.
Anyway, moving on to the kind of final major debate topic of this podcast, which is the FIA are having an engine, and the teams and different manufacturers are having an engine meeting, including Audi, who apparently are sending a representative there. So nice, my driver. And Todd has come out and said recently that he wants to, or him and FIA want to look to make F1 simpler ahead of these engine talks. Because he himself, this is him personally speaking, I don't know if he's speaking on behalf of the FIA, I think it's just him, saying that in his opinion, that he thinks F1 is getting too complicated and there's too many different electronic things going on, there's too many different things to look at for the teams and the drivers. And it's all a bit confusing, really, because wasn't he and the FIA the ones pushing all of this technological advancement 4 years ago?
I don't know. I don't think we've ever talked about this before.
No. It's quite a new topic. I don't know much about
No,
this. So.
honestly, we've spoken about this before. Bro, Formula E is there for a reason. He can make that his baby. So, therefore, when the fans are genuinely pleading for stuff in F1 that obviously needs to be fixed and changed to improve other aspects of the sport, do it. And don't just say, no, we can't because my morals and I'm John Todd and I can't go back on my word. I think the debate mainly has been focused, and at least in my opinion, what's getting me angry about using many expletives in a sentence, what's getting me angry about the whole statement he's made is that the fact that all these things he's saying, but yet he's defending V6 engines, which is we've seen teams openly admit, and like not teams, manufacturers in the car industries openly admit and turn down and say, listen, not the F1, we can't join F1 in its current form because the V6 is simply far too expensive to maintain and produce.
Which is a weird one. That's a weird thing to like, because I've not seen any of these things. So I'm taking your word on it, but it's a very peculiar thing for manufacturers to say, because on the other flip side, it was also why manufacturers didn't want to get into F1 before. It's because you're still using archaic V8 engines. Get with the times, basically. That's what the entire industry was shouting to F1 was get with the times. No one uses V8 naturally aspirated anymore. Get with the turbo era. And then we did it with the expensive engines. And then it's kind of odd to hear statements like that where some manufacturers are like, no, we can't come in because it's way too expensive. It's like, you can't really have it both ways then, because it is pioneering technology, but this pioneering costs a bloody amount. Like, so it's a bit of a weird double-edged sword.
It makes you wonder why Renault ever joined or rejoined. Because did they leave because the naturally aspirated were they like one of the only manufacturers that didn't like the V8s, and then they come back?
As an engine manufacturer, they never left.
They're still
as
there.
An engine manufacturer, but as a
motorsport team, I think they just didn't see any kind of financial gain, perhaps. I don't know. But, I mean, we saw, obviously, Mercedes threaten to leave if they didn't kind of buck up with the technology. And the entire industry was just like that. So it's kind of weird now. It's coming, I don't know. Well, I've not personally seen these quotes, so I'm taking Tom's word on it, because it sounds very surprising to hear the industry would say it's too expensive, because a lot of the industry was shouting for F1 to get with the times, basically, in a way. But I do agree the engines are
I'm convinced. I read it before, and like I said, it seems odd, or it seems quite a coincidence, the fact that this Audi is sending a representative to what F1 are doing in the future, and they're obviously not interested in what they're doing right now.
Well, I think
whether that's more pioneering technology or something that's a bit more, I want to say affordable, but something that's a bit more.
Well, we don't know. We don't know what the talk's going to be, but yeah, it's very intriguing that one. I think probably the media overblows it. I think there's probably literally one guy there from Audi or VW that's there, but it's interesting to see they've at least sent one person over there at least to kind of just see, okay, what's going on here in the future? Like, how can we maybe throw in our kind of 2 cents and maybe kind of shape it in a way that, okay, we could maybe want to join in the future. I don't know.
It's like it's simple logic. We know these engines are expensive to produce. The fact is, a while ago, we had manufacturers even like Peugeot producing engines.
It's like the Cosworth's engines as well. They were always the cheap ones, weren't they?
And there was things that people never even heard of, like Asiatex. Like, bro, we've only got 3 now because Honda don't count because they specifically exclusively supply McLaren,
and they're not very good.
Exactly, they basically can't count them anyway. So the fact that at one time there was like 7 to 8 manufacturers in a season, and we're down to 3, and no one really wants to join because they know it's a losing investment.
Well, weirdly, haven't there been talks about Ferrari going to Formula E?
Yeah,
they want to.
Yesterday,
he said the brand of Ferrari needs to be involved, because obviously Formula E is not really going anywhere anytime soon, because so many people do want to back it, because electric for the normal car industry is getting bigger and bigger in the cities, and obviously Formula E is based in city racing. That's the whole point. That's the kind of marketing ploy that they're doing, city racing, to kind of promote city electric cars. And Ferrari, he said the brand of Ferrari needs to be in it. So, and I think, did they get? I don't know. Like, I don't know if they did the exact same as Mercedes, but did they kind of sign in to like getting like a opportunity to join in the future years. I know Mercedes did. They have like that contract where they could definitely enter if they wanted to, like in 2018, I think. I don't know if Ferrari have got that. I think maybe Ferrari are only now just considering it.
Yeah, I remember Mercedes. There was a lot of speculation around Mercedes wanting to join Formula E, but it's a strange one because it's a huge pioneering sport. No one can sit there and say that that's where the future is going, but it's not. It's not really where the future of motorsport's going.
No.
We're okay. I don't know about Hayden, but us three were definitely not anti, but just not interested.
There's not much love for Formula E. I have no qualms against electric, but as a series, it's not really that entertaining, is it?
I would be like really into it. To be fair, I've watched some races. It's close battling and stuff like that. I'd be really into it if the races were close together, because you have like some races that are in the first 3 rounds that are in September, November, then you have a huge gap over the winter period, and you're just like, I can't be bothered anymore. What even happened at the start of the season?
Yeah, it is true, because you think, oh, Formula E's on this weekend, and then you don't hear about Formula E for about 2 months. You're like, where's it gone? Like Formula 1, at least it's a bit more
exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe we're just more tuned into the sport, but I don't
want to get into this podcast. There's a lot of different things that it's like. There's some things that they do great, and then there's some other things that really do piss me off that they do, with relation to how they talk themselves up and such. But I think for Ferrari to say that at least is kind of telling for them as a brand. But for F1, I don't think it affects it really too much. But these talks, I just don't know what to make. I don't know where. I really am intrigued of where they're going to go. In terms of simplifying it or something like that.
Well, they haven't got long, because they say 2020 that they want to change it. That's quite a quick turnaround in the engine regulations. If you think about it, that's only 6 years, really. Yeah. And obviously they've already got to scrap up some sort of plans for the new engines. Because I don't know. Well, obviously the 2017 regs were finalised halfway through 2016, but that's more aero regs. So I'm guessing the actual engine regulations will be probably decided maybe a year and a half before. I don't think it's going to be that much different to the V6 turbos, but I feel like there's going to be one little change that hopefully does make them a little bit more simplistic. But I don't know. I don't think it's a simplicity of the cars that we really need. I think it's just the cost. But maybe that comes hand in hand with each other. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one.
I mean, there's been talks about where to take these cars. Like, there's been debates about, where should we be going really in the future years. So I'm intrigued to know, out of you three, what, if I go to each of you, sort of, where do you think the direction go? We're talking engine wise, and then also maybe just the car, the aero or the look of the cars wise. Where do you think we should be going? In your general opinion, just a very general statement.
Well, aero-wise and the look of the car, I think we're going to stay where we are for quite a while now, because it's just liked overall. I haven't seen a certain person say that they don't like the look of the new cars.
Yeah.
But put it this way, in a year's time, the shark fin will go, the T-wing will go, the look of the car will be fine. The engines is a hard one, because I'd like to see me personally, after watching, because obviously us 4, we're as a group, we're going to Silverstone, and I was like, oh yeah, what's the atmosphere like? And I did watch a V6 start, I think at Monza, but then I watched the V8 start, and I think it was at the top of Eau Rouge or Radion, and you could hear the cars, and then I watched the 2016, and you couldn't hear them at all, and it did kind of break my heart a little bit. I've always been very anti-noise. People that are really the noise is gone, the sport's ruined. But I'd like to see the noise return, just some way, even if it's just a speaker on the back. that'd be amazing.
Speaker on the back.
That is one thing they're talking about.
So I'm trying to dig out the article about where Audi rejected F1 because of the engine situation. More what I'm seeing, more than the cost situation, is more they're actually pushing for even more greener technology. They're looking for fully electric by 2025. Also, I just read a curious little caveat about the sound situation. if Christian Horner and Toto Wolff both said that the best sounding car of the weekend was the Minardi show car, that's 12 years old.
Yeah, that's
that
what
drove
I
around the
saw,
track.
yeah.
And that car featured in Ben's vlog if you haven't seen it.
yeah.
Literally. And everyone saying it's the best sounding car of the whole weekend. So it says a lot about where F1 should be going and what the fans really want.
Yeah.
But in terms of go on then, Tom or Hayden, where
do you?
'cause I'm interested
Well,
actually.
I've been not listening properly as I've been trying to find this article. What's the point?
So basically, like, I just intrigued, like your personal view, like vague statement of where you think the engine should sort of go, and then direction of the car, like looks and aero, like.
Right. Okay. I'm all for pushing the limits of technology. However, if it means we have to reduce innovation to reduce costs, I'm all for it. And I'm used to the current sounds. I wouldn't mind the current sound just amplified like a V12. That's about it.
All right.
Okay. I think I agree with Callum. The looks of the cars will stay the same. They should stay the same because they look amazing. But I don't know whether maybe taking off the end plates on the front wing or something like that, because when they were flat, that's when racing was at its best. You know, you had a lot more better following the cars. Yes, we'll lose lap times, but at the end of the day, do people really care about lap records? We want to see more racing at the end of the day. In terms of engines, I'm very split. Like, I want to see these develop on these V6s because, you know, it's more technology and stuff like that. But then you want to go back to the roar of the V8s, V10s, whatever, and the more power. But
yeah.
It's
very
interesting to bring it
split.
up actually
I
with
think,
the aero because I basically just contradicted myself because last podcast I was talking about overtaking and then I've basically gone, yeah, I like the look of the cars.
Yeah, I thought.
But try and skew it. Basically, try and keep the look of the cars, but skew it towards the ground effect, so then we can improve overtaking.
I was gonna say it's a bit of a. I was gonna say it's an odd statement from you in terms of like keeping it the way, but
I've realised how much I contradicted myself the moment I said it, but I wanted to get that off my chest.
If I'm gonna be specific, T wings and shark fins gone. I can bear the shark fin. I think on some cars like the Toro Rosso looks okay. And unfortunately, I know no one talks about it, but the same thing like the engine, some people do talk about it. I still can't get used to the thumb nose. I just can't get used to it. Like, I look at the Toro Rosso and the Mercedes and I'm like, yeah, that was decent. A thumb nose to me just looks a bit.
yeah.
Nah. Just go piss off.
Yeah, I think
go away.
I think looks wise, like I don't mind too much any of that stuff. I think it's more just the fact that I just want them to try and focus more, like Callum said, towards like more ground effect areas, towards like the floor near the side pods. Like they could do ground effect tunnels on the floors, which won't be too dangerous compared to what we used to have. The reason why it got banned like all the way back was they used to have the entire floor being ground effect, but they could just have like we've got all this extra width of floor now. Why not just have channels of ground effect in those floors, basically?
Yeah.
And then if they could
I feel
somehow...
like they could really clean up the aero. So, you know when they originally changed the 2014 regs of aero, like on the rear wing, they used to have the main DRS, like the main element at the top, but they also had like an underlying element, which they don't have anymore.
Yeah.
To clean that area up and reduce aero. But they had like another wing at the bottom.
Yeah,
bring that one back. If need be, put another one on there. Like, basically... clean up the aero on the front, which is where the cars need to be mainly, racing close, and sort of simplify the aero, but simplify it yet make it effective in other areas. Like the fact we got wider tyres, that already increases downforce, so they could have stripped away 25% of wings and stuff on the car.
I think,
technically speaking, to keep the lap time similar and still have the wider tyres and a consistent formula.
I think this is the kind of, within myself, a debate, because I never want to see them artificially simplify the cars, but at the same time, because it's got so complex, that's the reason why they're so tricky to kind of follow each other. I feel like, though, like straight away, I think what they could do straight off the bat is just make the front wing, I think, smaller like it used to be, and get it to the front edge of the tyres, because that would straight away take away this whole... Basically, what they do right now is, because it's as wide as the edge of the tyres, they try and move the air around the tyre, and that's the reason why it's so hard to overtake and follow. So if they, I think straight away they just do little things like that, making it shorter. Maybe I would say restrict. I don't know. It's very hard how you do it. Like how.
Oh, it's a different sort of aero. Like if you look, I'm going to completely go on a guess here from what I can visually guess, but you know the way the side pods are shaped. it all focuses on that stuff going in between the three elements of the rear wing, so all through there instead of around the back. If I'm right in saying that, so it's all focused on trying to get.
They're
it
trying
all
to get
through
it
the rear
to
wing and down
basically
the floor.
the little gap between the rear wing end plate and the rear tyre. Because if they get as
Right.
much air through there, it basically creates like a vacuum seal for the diffuser to work a lot better.
Because with the old cars, circa 2009, with the more squared off side pods, you couldn't really do that. Because obviously there wasn't much access to that sort of area. So the air essentially it was a completely different way of making the whole car work. So
you're saying
I guess
that the
there's
introduction
ways.
of the Coke bottle, that's kind of
Because that's basically
influenced it.
forcing the air down the centre, therefore straight onto the front wing.
Well, there
Especially
wasn't
on the
like
I
current
like the
cars.
Coke bottle.
it wasn't like a regulation though that banned that. It was just that literally engineers didn't really have that concept yet. It's literally just
Yeah.
been that they've obviously got everyone just every year they all get cleverer. All the teams, they just find more knowledge. So it's a weird one because obviously you want to let them loose and be like, it's F1, go, find the innovation. But then it's like, now it's getting so complex that now it's like, drivers like Hulkenberg saying that, I can't even get close to the dirty air so much. It's basically like they're just like a Scalextric's car going around corners and they can't catch up to the car ahead. It's frustrating to watch.
I
Yeah,
quite
very
like the
completely.
Coke bottle though. Think about it. Just
Oh,
the
I love
tight
the shape.
packet.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I like
Also-
it. I like it.
Also, just like a very quick note as well. I don't know whether we mentioned it last podcast, but the Force India front wing, which had 7 elements on
Something
it,
like that.
I think
Crazy,
it's-
yeah.
I think
Like,
we
Arif,
brought it up at some
I
point.
put it up. I dropped the
Holy
picture
hell.
in the DM with both of their front wings for the weekend, and I was like, I'm seeing things, or this thing is thick. Like, bro, this has got serious bits on it, and it's like that's just not good. Like, I went at the second I clicked off that picture, I googled one of the 2009 cars. I think it was the BMW Sauber, and I looked at the front wing, and there was 2 elements. It was it's like a rear
Yeah.
wing, it's like the main one, and then like a flap, and that's it. That's what it was.
See, that's why
I'm
I love
looking
it.
at that, and I'm just
that's
like,
why I love the sport, is because you can see that difference. It's like it's so much faster and so much better in terms of like technological wise. But then you just then you get the other argument of, but now the fucking dirty air takes more effect.
Yeah.
I've always got this thing. I think there's an ideal in my mind from my user experience. There's like an ideal of what an F1 car looks like. For me, the ideal is about an F1 2000 car.
Yeah.
The F1 2000 Ferrari. If you Google the car and you look at it for yourselves, you see what I mean. It's a nice, beautiful looking car with nothing fancy in terms of aero, and it's just bloody quick. Honestly, and
See,
that
for me,
even
that's
after
the
thick
opposite. I
tyres.
hate the look of those cars. I'm just like, it looks like a box on wheels. Like, for me, like, if I think F1, I think 08 car, rocket ship.
But
Absolute rocket ship.
even if you just got that 2000 car and you gave it the Coke bottle shape instead,
Yeah.
it would even just that change. But even then, you could create an ideal sort of F1 car
there's
mishmash of past
Yeah,
and present.
like best hits, almost.
Yeah, sort of, basically,
One
yeah.
of the weirdest looking cars ever.
Best
We'll
hits.
be like, yeah, let's get all the best bits. We'll probably end up bringing the worst
Yeah,
bits. through somehow.
it's we can go back and forth so much. It's just never going to happen. It's just so tricky to do, and that's why as much of like slack we give the FIA and like all the teams and stuff, it's a very tricky thing to try and do of like creating this ideal thing, and I don't think 1 year's ever got it right completely. So it's tricky.
Here's
the
the thing.
question is, when
My
you're
main
pointing
thing is
towards
engines.
taking-
I would love some variety in the sport. Fact is, we need another form somehow of a Cosworth in the sport, because that just helps the teams that don't have the budget of the big
That's
ones.
not going to happen
Yeah.
anymore. It's never going to happen.
But exactly, but that's the problem. That it should happen. That's where F1 is got a major flaw, and that's
That'll only
where
happen
things need to be fixed.
if they remove the hybrid system. If there's and the hybrid
And
system.
no, than that, if it just becomes more
affordable.
affordable, it just has to become more affordable, in my opinion. It's just too expensive for Cosworth to delve into that. Simple as that.
Yeah.
It's weird. But speaking more like regs and everything with overtaking, it's going to be interesting to see what overtaking is like in China, because there's a lot of and ahhing, because Albert Park, tight street circuit, we got a lot of like comments saying that we were kind of been a bit too pessimistic. Just
Forgetting
because
that
it was
Albert Park is indeed actually a shite
Yeah,
track.
you can put your hand up and say Albert Park is a hot lap circuit. It's not a racing circuit.
Yeah.
But then you look at China and you think, I still kind of feel like we're going to have the same problem in China.
It's only really going to be down that straight, isn't it? Cause,
yeah, but I can't see the drivers being even getting that close.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
I think...
yeah, go on.
Because they were talking about changing the DRS straight, weren't they? On certain tracks after China, I think. So not China, but after it. Just to see how much it affects. So, yeah, we could see like literally no overtakes down that straight, which would be really disappointing.
It's going to be like a still picture.
Yeah.
Like, just talking about the car shape again, just sort of going back on a point, I just remembered. I don't know if any of you have noticed, it's like a very peculiar thing, like a very specific thing, but I don't know what track it was. I want to say it's like I want to say it's at Hockenheim or something. But up until last year, Vettel had the record for the 2009 season from 2009. I think it was either Silverstone or Hockenheim. And I don't know what track it was, but my point is, one of the 2009 cars with the simple aero had the track record up until last year. So there's obviously a way to make it work and keep it competitive. It's just a question of how you pull it off.
Well, Formula 1's always been simplifying. This is probably why it's got a biggest. That's why this year has been such a step forward. It's not because it's not really anything. It's not anything innovative and new. It's just they know what to do. They've just been restricted so much.
Yeah. And also, like, that's the funny thing. What was it? It's literally the one sentence, like, I think from Sky or, I don't know, Channel 4 or something. The one line of just like, so these cars are now going to be 4 to 5 seconds faster. Despite, though, the fact that for the last 10, 15 years, the FIA have been trying to slow these cars down so that we can keep the tracks. Because basically they were getting too fast for the tracks. And then it's so ironic that now we've just gone, snap, 5 seconds faster.
I'm looking at it now and I'm just looking at
pictures.
pictures.
Safety features for Albert Park. Well, to make tyre walls bigger.
I'm looking as recent as 2009, but it's just true. I'm looking at the pictures. I'm like, bro, there's so much potential. Like Toyota and BMW, for example, names that you would expect to be in the sport. In 2009, it's like they were there. Now they're gone.
Yeah, now
Toyota,
it's like
BMW. You know, all this talk about Audi coming in. You had Cosworth back in 2009 as well. It's like,
I think
I
Tom's
don't know.
getting a bit nostalgic.
You're
Not nostalgic, but no, it's just,
I'm
going to call that out right now because out of us four, you are the nostalgia guy.
Yeah, I am, but it's true. It's a shame because the fact is, I think I do like the V6s now. I've gotten to a point where I've gotten used to them and I've even grown to like them. But at the same time, in the grand scheme of things, it's a losing investment.
But I still think, in the grand scheme of things, you are forgetting though the really shite races back in the day as well.
I'm not thinking. I'm just talking about as a sport in terms of being healthy and being a good.
Oh right, yeah. In that
business
sort of,
wise,
yeah. I do completely agree with that.
Purely.
I completely agree that it's a shame that you don't see so many teams now. It's like, oh, so you sort of have these big three manufacturers, then there's a couple of customer teams, and then that's it. And it's like,
because
it's a shame
I can
that
sum it up in a sentence. It's such a pioneering sport, yet there's the least amount of manufacturers we've ever had.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's kind of odd in that way. Like, it's like, oh, we had to become relevant again, but then where are the new manufacturers coming from?
Anyone? No? Raise hands? No? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very odd one. It's F1 is very, you can't, it's not a, it's very ironic it's called Formula 1 because there's no real formula to it to make it perfect. It's very, I think every fan could debate every other fan for like years on it. Yeah.
I think you summed it up really well in a podcast a while ago where it's just like, us as Formula 1 fans, we don't know what we want until we get it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's
probably one of the best points you've probably ever made.
Yeah, that's literally it. That basically explains it. You literally just said it. That's like the one line. No one knows what they want. And it's very odd, because you have these different sections of fans that have one particular one, and then you put them all together watching the same thing this year, and it's like a mishmash of opinions. It's very hard. Like I can't remember who it was. Just like one comment randomly. I think it was the last podcast or the one before that or something like that. But like someone was like, I'm guessing he was an older fan of F1, like the olden days. Like he's been watching it for a while. He was like, we got spoiled by 2012, and it's like, yeah, you can say we got spoiled by 2012, but that because we had such a great season, who says we have to now go back to the shite that was before 2012? Like people were like, I saw a lot of comments in the last podcast saying, "Oh, this is what F1 used to be like." It's like well, that's all well and good, but I don't care about what it used to be like. We're in 2017 now. I'd like some more relevant what people are asking for now, and in this day and age now, F1 almost has to become more of an entertainment kind of event than the sport because its numbers are declining, everything's declining. It's a
if it's
dying
21
breed.
Social media.
Super Bowls, if they do want to make it 21 Super Bowls, racing has to be
On it.
10
on
times better than what
On
it
it.
is at the minute. Yeah.
That was not a Super Bowl. That was like your local, like Hayden's going to a football match after this. That was like your local football match sort of hype levels.
Yeah, it's very true. But speaking of China, what are we thinking then in terms of race winner? Are we thinking?
Oh yeah, I
thinking
forgot.
about
This
Ferrari?
is technically a
This
Chinese
is
Grand Prix preview.
We've got
Yeah.
to do predictions.
Yeah.
We've got to do predictions on the fly.
Oh, I wasn't ready for this. All right, well, I guess we'll end. A good point. We'll end with that then. So, okay, I'm gonna get my piece of paper out here and I'll write it down.
Yeah,
Because
just remember what we
are
did
we
last
going to
time.
see?
I've been caught by surprise here.
Right.
No,
yeah,
I didn't
just
even know it
thought I'd
myself,
nip it straight
Hayden.
in.
Cal was the one who just brought it up. Like, oh yeah.
I kind of like snapped you out of your little nostalgic talk.
Okay,
to kind of
Cal,
bring it back
since
to
you were the one who brought it
2017.
up, you go first.
Well,
Poland top 5.
Poland top 5. I'd like to say Mercedes on pole again. I think we're going to see Hamilton on pole. I'm not going to go wild like last week or 2 weeks ago and say Raikkonen on pole. And then I'm probably going to say Hamilton, Vettel, Bottas, same podium, but Ricciardo, Raikkonen.
Okay.
I think Verstappen's going to have it. I think it's going to be a swing in the other direction. I think Verstappen's going to have a bad weekend.
Right. Okay, I'm going to go Hamilton pole position. I'm going to go for... Actually...
Yeah,
we'll see
okay,
now
I've got
after
my
his
predictions.
No, you know what? You know what? Fuck it. Vettel pole position. Hamilton
Right, I've
win.
got mine.
Vettel
Right.
second. Bottas third. Raikkonen fourth. And Verstappen fifth again. I'm going to say Verstappen still has it.
Okay.
Hayden, have you got yours? Or shall I go?
I'm going to go for Hamilton on pole. But I think the same thing's going to happen like we saw in Albert Park, where Mercedes struggle with tyre wear. I mean, if they were struggling there, then they're seriously going to struggle in China. So I'm going to put the 2 Ferraris as a 1-2. Vettel to win it, Raikkonen second, Hamilton to make the podium with Bottas fourth and Ricciardo fifth.
You've got a lot of
Spicy.
faith in Raikkonen.
Spicy.
Faith.
I fancy a bit of controversy. So
Oh, here we come.
Here
I'm
we
Stroll
go.
to win the race.
Tom with his crystal ball.
here we go. This is what I'm going for.
Man,
so,
are gonna be
obviously,
great
with,
next year.
with the statement that was made this week about Hamilton claiming that Vettel was more competition for him than Rosberg ever was, I think I'm going to go pole position Lewis Hamilton because he has a record around China of most poles, I believe. I think.
It's his favourite track,
But-
yeah, one of his favourite.
For the race winner, I'm going to go Bottas. I
Oh.
think something's
Has
going to
Vettel
happen.
and Hamilton crashed each other out by any chance?
Yeah.
No. I think there's going to be a strategy blunder or something's going to go wrong, or maybe Bottas and Hamilton have a bit of a kerfuffle or something. I don't know. I fancy something happening nice and early in the season just to set the tone and try and give F1 a bit of a spark, because at the moment it needs a bit of storyline. So I'm going to go Bottas for the race win, Vettel second, Kimi third, Lewis fourth, and then Ricciardo in fifth. I think I want to see something happen, and
So we
So
don't
Tom-
know
I want to see Bottas get a win and just say, "Oh hey, I'm here." Hi.
Tom's banking on an absolute madness of a race.
Well, last year was a mad one, so I'm
Yeah,
banking on that
it
again.
was. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
we'll
true.
see. Certainly lap 1, I think it's going to be very, very intriguing. I think after that, it might peter out and spread out a little bit. And also,
I don't really
going
boring,
back
so-
just before, last final point, going all the way back to what something Hayden said about the gap and the whole +1 lap for a lot of people. That gap is something that Todd's also talked about. That it's just far too big. I don't know if
It
you guys
is.
all agree, but it's just too big. +1
So,
lap.
To see up to
Well,
like the
then.
top 6.
It's like, were
It's
you
only on
guys
the lead
even
lap,
trying
yeah.
this year for the regs? Like, the gap is
I wanna say-
humongous.
Did you any of you see what Ross Brawn's done this week? Apparently, he's going to assemble
Yeah,
a
I saw
aero department committee team to urgently to try and fix it. So if they need to act, they're going to get on that, because obviously
FI
the
task
next
force.
big rule change is 2020 engines. But once the next aero change, we can't have this for another 7-8 years. Otherwise, the car's going to
Yeah, I
look like
would suspect.
spaceships.
I would
So,
suspect 2019 the cars will change quite a bit. I think.
I think the change is going to come as soon, if not sooner, than what the 2014 to 2017
Yeah,
era
yeah. I
was.
think that's why I say 2 years. I think probably, but yeah, certainly a lot of future talk still going on, and probably for many years. But moving on to China, that was our predictions. So I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see next week if it's any good. If you did enjoy this podcast, then leave a like. Let us know what you thought about anything we talked about in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do subscribe to this channel for the podcast. Check out all 4 of us. Links in the description. Twitter handles above our little picture video feeds. Do go check out Hayden, as I mentioned, newcomer to the podcast for our kind of guest this week. And we want to try and bring in different guests from time to time, but I'm sure you'll be seeing Hayden back at some point as well, because enjoyed having you here. So go check out Hayden, links in the description, and we'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you for the next one, the Chinese Grand Prix review. Goodbye.